All right, first things first, a huge congratulations to you for getting through your Class 10 basic math exam. You did it. Now let's get right into why you're here, a real, no-fluff breakdown of the paper you just tackled. We're going to unpack everything from how tough it was to what it all means for your marks. So, let's just cut to the chase and answer the biggest question on your mind. Was that paper tricky or was it just me? Well, the verdict is in, and the consensus from both students and teachers is that the paper was moderate. So, if you walked out of that exam hall feeling like it wasn't exactly a walk in the park, but also not impossible, you were spot on. That's exactly how most people felt. But what does moderate really mean anyway? Well, it means the paper pretty much hit that sweet spot. It wasn't filled with super easy questions, but at the same time, it wasn't designed to be crazy tough either. The questions were really focused on your core concepts, which is great news if you actually understood the why behind all the formulas. And here's the key. It really showed that if you practiced your NCERT textbook thoroughly, you were in a really good position. So here's our game plan. We'll confirm the overall verdict, then we'll dissect the paper's anatomy. We'll go through it section by section, look at the common spots where people got stuck, talk about what that might mean for scoring, and, most importantly, we'll finish up with your next steps. So let's just lock in that overall verdict. We're calling it moderate. And really, the most important thing for you to hear right now is that whatever you felt walking out of that exam, you were not alone. Thousands of other students across the country were feeling the exact same way. Your experience was valid. Okay, next up, let's look at the anatomy of this paper. This is where we get into the why. What were the examiners actually trying to figure out with the questions they asked? Let's dig in. Looking closely, you can see the paper was fundamentally fair. It was really strongly rooted in your NCERT syllabus, and thankfully, there were no shocking out-of-syllabus curveballs. It did have those competency-based questions that made you think a little deeper, and yeah, some of those MCQs took a bit more time than you'd like, but all in all, it was what we expected. And this really gets to the heart of the matter. This exam was a test of genuine understanding, not just your ability to memorize a bunch of formulas. The questions were really designed to reward students who could actually grasp the concepts and apply them, which honestly is a good thing. It's a shift towards testing real knowledge. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to put each of the 5 sections of the paper under the microscope now, from the MCQs right through to those case studies at the end. So breaking it down, Section A, the MCQs, they definitely needed some careful calculation and good time management. Section B was probably a bit of a relief, right? The questions were pretty direct and simple. Section C cranked up the difficulty a bit, and showing your steps clearly was absolutely key there. The long answers in Section D were straightforward, but you had to apply your knowledge. And finally, Section E, the case studies, they were all about applying concepts logically to real-world situations. Of course, no paper is perfect, and there are always a few tricky parts. So let's talk about the common sticking points, the sections or question types where a lot of students probably felt the pressure. So the 2 main hurdles seem to be those competency-based questions. They really made you connect the dots instead of just following a simple formula. And as we mentioned, those time-consuming MCQs. Because time was a real factor. It means that your final score is probably going to depend a lot on how clear your presentation was, and how accurate you were, especially if you were rushing at the end. So, let's put it all together. A moderate paper, a few tricky spots. What does this all mean for your marks? Let's take a look at what the scoring trends might look like, depending on how prepared you were coming in. Okay, based on the paper's design, we can make some pretty solid projections. For a student who came in with average preparation, scoring somewhere in the 60 to 70 range seems totally achievable. For those with good prep, you could be looking at 75 to 80. And for students with really strong fundamentals, you've got a great shot at hitting 90 plus. Because the paper was so balanced, we're expecting the overall results and pass percentages to be pretty stable this year. So, we've analyzed the past, now it's time to focus on the future. And honestly, this is the most important part of our whole chat today. Now that the maths exam is done and dusted, what should you do next? Listen to me on this one. The exam is done. It's in the past. You can't go back and change any of your answers. So the single best thing you can do for yourself starting right now is to stop overthinking it. Put this paper out of your mind and pour all of that energy into your next exam. And I want to leave you with this final thought. Board exams are a marathon, not a sprint. They're designed to reward the consistent work you've put in all year long, not whether you were absolutely perfect on one single day. You've done the work. Trust in that preparation. Focus on what's ahead and go crush it. Good luck with your remaining exams.